What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Lifecast. We are on episode 41. We are actually getting extremely close to episode 50, which is kind of a big deal. So that'd be 50 episodes over the course of the 7-year span, which actually is not that significant if you think about it, but it's fine. It's
Are
cool.
you a Minnesotan?
No.
Why do you have a gray duck then?
So Ross is referencing the gray duck that's on my desk. Caitlin just brought that here and she hid them around my room and I found them within 5 minutes. So she didn't hide them very well. So I need to hide them again and tell her to find them next time she's here. But Ross is back on the podcast.
As always.
As always. He's literally my roommate and he's literally
I've been your roommate for the past 4 years? 3 years? I don't know, something.
I mean, 3 years in college. And then this would be our fourth year. So, yeah, he's just easy. We'll get a new guest on eventually. Episode 50 is hopefully going to be at least I don't know. I hope to get 3 or 4 people on. And it'll be a Discord call. So, hopefully we'll do that. And, yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be a good time. But, this episode is going to be about House of David. Me and Ross have watched 3 episodes. I think there's 6 or 7 or 8 in the series.
There's 8 in the series, 7 have launched.
In the season.
Will come out this Thursday.
Oh, really? So it's still coming out. So
Yeah.
we're not that far behind. So we're talking about something that's actually still coming out, guys. This is crazy.
We're talking about relevant subjects. I was going to say objects.
Yeah. Well,
I have a few relevant objects for you.
that is so take that as you will, listener. Anyway, we this is going to be considered the March podcast episode for the year, but it will be released on April 3. That's because I don't have a video scheduled for this upcoming Wednesday, and this is going to be our small talk because the project is sitting right in front of me, so I'm working on this Little Nightmares video. It's been something that's I know I exposed. Oh well. I'm working on the Little Nightmares video, and basically, if you're familiar with the editing style of Maxor, that's kind of the style I'm going for, but less what word did we use to describe it today? Less schizophrenic. But still very fast paced. It was written in that style. So this has been 2 years in the making ish. So I had Ivan, you know him from Siege videos. I had Ivan do the voice acting.
And other videos. He's been on other videos.
Yeah, but probably people and Origami, I guess. But Siege is kind of the.
He's been on the podcast before.
He has not been on the podcast.
Wait, he actually hasn't.
Nope, never been on. I offered it to him one time, and he was uncomfortable with the idea because he's not really a talker in that way.
Oh.
So, it's just a strength thing for him, and I respect that. But,
That's fair.
Yeah. So I'm working on that. So let me look here. So there's the intro, gameplay, lore, DLC, achievements, and the end. So I'm in the midst of the lore section right now. I did some work on the end section, but I got intro and gameplay sections pretty much polished. I've been working on them and sending them to Ivan, and then Ivan has been doing his thing, giving me some tips of things to fix and such. And then the DLC, that's about 1:30. The lore section that I'm working on now, I'm about 2 minutes in out of the 4-ish minutes it is. So I got about 2 minutes to edit on that. And then achievements is about 5 minutes long. That's just basically explaining in a funny way how to get all the achievements in the game. So yeah, that's kind of the project. That's the breakdown. So people who listen to this podcast and watch my videos, which is not a lot of you, but you just got the.
Yeah.
Do you actually though? If you're part of the podcast, do you go back and listen to the podcast?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's at least one person, Ross, in the future, who watches this.
Yep. I'm gonna remember all the jokes I thought of and didn't say.
Yeah.
Not this one.
Yeah, I have a podcast I do for work, And that's exactly what I do. I go back and listen. I'm like, oh man, that would have been a perfect joke right then, right there. But like the thing about my work podcast is it's a more serious vibe. But still, I've been using the skills I've learned from this podcast and trying to do this and the way I've tried to format it in the past. And I've actually been applying all of that into my work podcast. And it actually works, funny enough. But this is supposed to be more of a low key, just kind of friends chatting, and I'm okay with that. So, yeah. So that's the small talk today. It's look for it, the Little Nightmares video, hopefully coming out in April sometime. So that is if I can keep my motivations up.
April Fools.
Yeah. Completely unrelated. I will be live streaming all day April 1. So.
April Fools.
Anyway, yeah. So Ross, what else have you been watching besides House of David? Have you been watching anything else?
I did have a binge on Hogan's Heroes for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Really good show. They unfortunately they just took it off Amazon Prime. So
Why?
I don't know. I think it was like a free trial thing, or not a free trial thing, but you know, like where Amazon will put it on, trial it for like a year or 6 months or whatever, and then take it off.
And then you have to go subscribe to something else. It was a whole ploy.
But I already have the 6 seasons.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have the DVDs, so
I'm fine. I just don't want to do that much work and put the dang CDs in the DVD player.
that does get to be a lot sometimes. But...
Yeah, I don't know. It was just a lot. No, they had some episodes missing too from the Amazon Prime one. But I was watching that. What else have I been watching? Hogan's Heroes, House of David that we've been watching. I feel like I've been watching one more series. Maybe I haven't. I don't know. Yeah. That's about it for me. I haven't done much. I've been working a lot, so
yeah. Work trips for this guy. He's out everywhere.
Yep.
He just randomly
come find me in
goes.
Canada.
Yeah, he's going to Canada next week.
Oh,
You'll be in Canada when this comes out.
I will be in Canada. So if you want to find me, my location is in the comments. That haven't come out yet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it, I'm not gonna tell you where I'm gonna put the coordinates to, but it's gonna be something funny.
Yeah, that's funny. So yeah, Hogan's Heroes is kind of Ross's comfort show, I've found. So
yes,
that's
it
fun.
is. It's hilarious.
It's a good show.
It's about World War II prisoners of war, and if you think it's bad, you're wrong.
It's an old show. Me and my dad would watch the old Batmans. My dad would watch the old Batmans when we would on Saturday nights when we'd make pizza. So we'd make pizza and then we'd sit down at 6 o'clock and we'd watch Batman for 2 hours an hour.
You would watch the Adam West Batman.
Yes, dude, the Adam West Batman slaps.
That.
So, anyway, yep, that's what Ross has been watching. I will say though, I'm very excited about House of David. We're 3 episodes in.
It's been very good.
It's been very good. I've loved the contrasts they're doing. They've obviously taken creative liberties due to the fact that they have to.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of context in the Bible. So House of David is... Bro. This is a audio podcast, not a video podcast.
I know, that's what makes it funny.
So glad that is not a video podcast. Anyway,
yeah, I don't want people to see what I look like. That's creepy.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So House of David is based on David from the Bible, of course. And how David's life, they started kind of, these first 3 episodes have been leading up to, it seems like the season ender is going to be leading up to David and Goliath.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. Other than that, yeah, it takes some creative liberties, but overall I'm very content with the things that they're pulling out. They're keeping the focus on the things they need to focus on. The contrast between Saul and Jonathan is really good. The the whole idea that of David kind of being an outcast kind of took some getting used to. One of my work friends was like, "Yeah, it's fine, but like David seems like he wants people to pay attention to him, and that's not the vibe I get from David in the Bible." And I'm like, "Well, sure, he's a shepherd and a social outcast, and the humans require social interaction, and so if David doesn't feel like he's getting that, of course he's going to be seeking that out in certain ways. So to me, it's not uncharacteristic at all. Um, the other thing is David's mom is still kind of a mystery. The big thing with that is that we really don't know a lot about David's mom in the Bible. It doesn't really say, but the way in the first 3 episodes it sounded to me as if Jesse married someone outside of Israel, which is punishable by death technically
Yes,
in Israelite times, right?
I believe.
I don't know if it's punishable by death,
I
but
don't-
God told them not to. He told them not to take wives from other countries, and he told them not to make steal any of their idols, any of their gold, any of their livestock, and that's exactly what happened in the first episodes.
Well,
Was
not necessarily. That was with just the Amalekites.
well, yeah, but they were still taking their stuff.
Yeah, no, because the thing is through especially the first couple books of the Bible, when God tells them to go out and conquer, sometimes he does not specify what to do with the loot per se. Like sometimes like yeah, take from him, but other times and like especially in the beginning of the conquest of Canaan and with the Amalekites, he says, "Give it all to me."
Sure.
And don't spare anyone because he does not want these people to live because he's God. So sometimes yes, sometimes no. It really depends on the story instead of just
Well, that's the context I picked up on because Jonathan's younger brother, I forget what his name is,
something.
but basically he was like stealing and taking stuff from the people they had just looted, and he was like drinking from a golden goblet,
Yep.
and it was like this whole thing. So the vibe I got, and Jonathan even said it, I think in the first episode, he's like, you weren't supposed to take any of this stuff. God commanded you not to.
Yep.
So the whole idea. My favorite character right now is Samuel.
Saul or Samuel?
No, Samuel.
Samuel.
Samuel. He kind of comes off as a kooky, weird old guy.
He does.
But that's kind of, that's kind of the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you read any of the Old Testament prophets, they all come off as really kooky. And that's by design.
Yep.
There's a lot of theology based behind that. I don't know if we want to really get into that, but basically, like, they're called to stand out, just like we're as Christians called to stand out for the people. So him coming off as really kooky and weird, really like that was cool. That they really sold that, and then the actor does a really good job of it too.
Yeah, he does do a very good job of it.
And another really cool aspect. I think episode 3 has been my favorite of the 3 we've watched, just because of the lead up to episode 3 was really good.
Mm-hmm.
They really set up Samuel really well. They set up Saul going crazy really well.
They did do that. That's
the slow descent into madness, and his wife basically being hungry for power was a really good setup too. What has been your favorite aspect of this show so far, Ross?
So far, I gotta say, honestly, the Saul, his issue with the, what did they call it again? Not the demons, but the nightmares that he'd been like that.
Yep, he's going crazy.
Yeah, the fact that he's going crazy. I think, in the Bible, we're not given a great picture of what it is. We're just told that the Spirit of God left him, and therefore he acts erratically, but we don't really know about the extent of that until he throws that spear at David in
Yep.
once David enters his service.
Yep.
And so I think they've done a really good job of taking that in and being like, we're going to expand upon this. We're going to basically be like, we're going to actually make Saul a really kind of Jekyll and Hyde character that both looks at what he does and says, oh dear, and then at times he's also like a menace. So I think they're doing a great job of that. I really like the way that they have, and you and I have talked about the liberties that they've taken. Like, it's not my favorite thing in the world, because I do, when something is based on the Bible, I like it to be biblically accurate.
Sure.
And this is for the most part, but still I like, but some of the liberties they take, I think, go a little bit too far. Like I don't know too much about Israelite customs, so I like the thing with David being a social outcast, I kind of get, because he is the youngest son.
Right. He's the youngest. His mother isn't the same as his other brothers. And
but that's the thing. We never know who David's mother is truly.
Not really.
But that's like the thing. If like, let's say Jesse still had one wife,
Sure.
and he was just the social outcast because he was the youngest, and he's like, I go tend the sheep.
Right.
So there's that. I didn't watch anything else besides what we've been up to, but I did go ahead and, like, we can go read like the descriptions through Amazon Prime.
Yep.
I did just go through and read them right before we watched episode 3, just because I was like, I wonder how they're gonna stretch like the 3 chapters of the Bible that this entire season is based on into 8 episodes, especially when they covered basically 1 chapter in the first episode.
Sure.
So basically, I know right now that David's gonna start playing lyre for the king, for Saul, and it sounds like there's gonna start to be some mutual attraction between him and Michal, whatever her name is,
his future wife.
Yep. Which we don't know if it happened in the Bible. Definitely could have, but it might not either. So some of those liberties, it's just like, I don't know if they need to be made, but that's also.
David was in the king's service.
He was in the king's service, so he definitely met her. I just don't know if there were, they never say, oh yeah, there was mutual attraction.
Oh, sure.
It's not the fact that they definitely met. It's just like,
okay, I got you.
It's just like when she is originally given to be his wife. I actually don't remember the circumstances for that one. I don't remember the circumstances for that, but
they came down to Bethlehem and basically said grace or something like.
They did a publicity tour.
Yeah, that's what it was, because Saul was going crazy, so they were doing a publicity tour, which kind of makes sense actually. But that's kind of a modern concept ish too.
Yeah.
The words publicity tour. I'm sure they did it in ancient times in some capacity, but yeah, that's what they were up to. I mean, I get the fact that it's not like extremely hyper biblically accurate, but with the details the Bible gives, it would be very hard to not derive off of that.
Exactly.
And this isn't supposed to replace the Bible.
No.
That's never the intent, right?
Yeah. No, like the only hope I have is that if, like, obviously we're Christians and we're watching it, we can pick out the differences between the two.
Yep.
But what does this look like to someone who's not a Christian? What does this look like to someone who says, oh, I've heard about Christianity, maybe I'll watch this Song of David, see kind of what it's about. David's a super important character in the Bible. He's he writes one of the most famous passages in the Bible, Psalm 23.
Yep.
That's quoted a lot.
He wrote a lot of the songs.
He wrote a lot of the songs, but you get where I'm going.
Yeah.
Is that if someone comes in with a modern way of thinking and sees the way that... You good?
Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay. I just didn't know what you were doing down there. But anyway, so let's say we take a modern audience spin who's non-Christian, and they look at that and they're like, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Why, you know, why
Sure.
you get, or I gotta finish the sentence. Why do they do these things this way in the Bible? Why is this happening? And then let's say they decide to go and read the source material of the Bible, which this is from, and then they go and look, and it's like, well, why is this story completely, why is this story in the Bible full of basically like no details besides the ones that are necessary? And then why are the ones
in the House of David?
in the House of David so vivid? Because here's the thing. I took out the Bible and looked up the passages from which this entire season is derived from, which is 1 Samuel 15 through 17. This is 3 chapters of the Bible, and the first chapter, 1 Samuel 15, was covered in the first episode completely. And then the next 6 episodes, or the next 7 episodes, are given 1 Samuel 16, 1 Samuel 17. Which 1 Samuel 16 is basically David's anointment and him entering the king's service, which is basically...
Which is where we got 2 and 2 and 3.
Yeah, which is 2 and 3. And that's going to be 5 and 6 from what it looks like, is 4, 5, and 6.
Sure.
As well. And then 7 and 8 are going to be covering David's battle with Goliath.
Sure.
From what it looks like, I looked at the titles, it's David and Goliath Part 1 and David and Goliath Part 2. So, and then or episode 7 and 8 cover chapter 17. So, and chapter 16 just doesn't give a lot of detail. It just kind of says David enters the king's service and plays for him and does a few things here and there. And so they're really stretching chapter 16 out into 5 episodes. So, which I feel like there's a bit more that you could have done with David's story, but it makes it more focused.
Sure.
The other thing I will admit that I'm a bit annoyed with is that when I noticed this, especially when Samuel calls out his or tells Saul that the Spirit of the Lord is leaving him.
Oh, sure.
They use a very similar quote to the Bible, but they kind of didn't use the direct quote from the Bible.
Sure.
Which is like, all right. It's like making a movie on a very famous book. So let's say, I don't know.
And then not saying the line.
And then not saying the line. It's like,
sure.
It's like, guys, it's right there. This is what the Lord said. Sure. Partly I can kind of understand why they didn't do it. It's,
And it's maybe one of the things where they tried it and it just sounded clunky.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this is never, as I said, this is never supposed to replace the Bible. This is only supposed to be supplementary to it. And what I mean by that is, like, sometimes a story is benefited from recontextualizing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So not that the story needs to be changed its meaning, and this story isn't the thing that's the green flag for me is it's not changing the meaning of the story. The meaning of the story still seems to be the same. Yeah. It's very obvious that it's because Saul is not following God that he is no longer going to become king, and that he has fallen from God's from the not, I was gonna say fallen from God's grace, but that's not true. Fallen from being king because of that disobedience.
Yep.
That's stated in episode 1, and that sets up the whole reason why Saul's going through what he's going through.
Yep.
And that even with the extra stuff they made, that theme is still there. And actually, the concept of, in episode 3, one of my favorite. The reason episode 3 was my favorite is because you have the king of, what nation is it?
The Gaza and the Philistines.
Yep. You have the Philistine king. He brought all the surrounding nations together that were still against Israel, and he's like, listen, guys, we need to take care of this Israel thing. It's kind of annoying. They're taking care of us. They're cleaning house on us. And they're just like, yeah, whatever. And then they kind of leave. And the Philistines guy's like, all right, well, I guess I got to go search for new warriors. So right at the scene where you get to David being anointed to be king, David, skinny shepherd boy, brothers love him, but they don't, they look down upon him for sure. Social outcast, not really someone that you would pick to be king, right? At physical stature. But Solomon said it was a direct quote from the Bible. We look at the physical appearance, but God looks at the heart, right?
Samuel.
Yep, Samuel. Sorry, thank you.
You really gotta stop getting those.
There's too many S names. Samuel said that. It was a direct quote from the Bible. I was like, oh, that's great. Yeah, that's straight from the Bible. Then it cuts, and the Philistine is looking. This is the character they added. They called her the Mother of Giants. Basically, I don't know if she was their actual mother or just a caretaker.
Yeah.
I think that's up for. I really don't know what they were going for there. But basically, she was like, yes, I have sons, or I have people, I have giants that you can take to war with you, but you can only take one. And she's like, this is my most promising son. And out comes, of course, Goliath. So you're met with these two vastly different worldviews. The Philistine guy, he's like, hey, I'm going to pick the biggest, strongest man by appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the opposite hand, you have Solomon, who's like, Samuel, thank you. Solomon, where is he in the Bible?
He's after David.
He's way after David. And then he's like, listen, God is picking David, the social outcast, the small skinny kid from Brooklyn, right? Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, Brooklyn.
Yeah, I
it's a Marvel quote. But yeah, so you've got that whole thing, and it's like that's a really cool contrast as to how the Israelites are so much different than the world around them. And I just thought that was really a powerful comparison. So props to the writers on that one, because that was like mind blowing to me. And just that realization, like, you know it, but then when you see it kind of side by side, comparing it in a story like that, you're like, whoa, that's weird. So I really enjoyed that, and that's why 3 has been my favorite episode, and I think it's going to be really hard to top that, even if I like the rest of the season, because that comparison is the heart of the whole show, from what I'm seeing. So, and good news for me, I'm assuming season 2 is already been greenlit.
It has
by Amazon Prime. So
that's good.
It's getting enough views and intake that Amazon Prime is seeing it as a good thing. So, overall, I think this is a win. I think it's a good series. Whether you're Christian or not, it's just a good watch. Really interesting stuff.
Yep.
Anything else on this, Ross?
I mean, yeah, I like that they probably used a bunch of different sources too. Like, they obviously just didn't use the Bible. They probably looked at a lot of historical sources. I mean, in the first battle with the Amalekites that we see them, that Saul takes on in 1 Samuel 15, it's often known that throughout the history of the Israelites, they really didn't fight with swords, only like really some nobility, and King Saul's family was really wealthy enough and had the expertise available to them to have swords. So most of the Israelites fought with pitchforks and tools and other stuff that they could use to kill, but weren't necessarily meant for war in the first place. And they showed that really well. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been overall a very solid representation and recreation of David, the start of David's story.
If you want the military context of that day, the Bible doesn't necessarily give that. Though, for some reason, the Bible will just give you the ark, the plans to build the ark. So, or the Ark of the Covenant, or the Tabernacle. Like, those plans are in there, but not, like, their warfare or anything.
Sometimes God wants to... Well... yeah.
And, yes, I understand I'm reading that with a modern culture viewpoint. You're not supposed to do that. And to your point of, like, anybody could watch the show and be like, why is there a discrepancy? I think people already, like, don't realize that reading the Bible within proper context is how important that is. That's like trying to read Plato and then putting your modern spin on it. Like, it doesn't work. You can't do the Bible that way either. If you can't do Plato that way, you sure as heck can't do the Bible that way either. So
the message.
I like the message, not as a study Bible, but as a different viewpoint, because Jordan Peterson, I think is his name. No, it's a different Peterson. I forget his first name. But his last name's Peterson, the guy who wrote the Message Bible. I think he recently passed away.
No, really.
But he's a really cool dude. He really is a very faithful Christian, and that very much shows in the way he's lived his life. So I don't think he's nefariously trying to change what the Bible says. He's just trying to put it in a modern context, no different than what the King James version was doing, than the ESV and I guess ESV is a bad example because that's more of a word for word translation. But we're getting lost in the sauce here. But that is all. Next month we'll maybe have 3 more episodes watched. Well, maybe have 2 more episodes watched. Just depends how much Ross leaves, how much I'm busy with work. So we'll keep you guys updated on that, and we'll probably have the Minecraft movie comes out pretty soon.
Oh, yep.
So we'll have that to talk about. So there'll be a lot more to talk about next episode. So be sure to subscribe if you are a listener of this podcast.
And you haven't subscribed
yet. That'd be ridiculous. I do see that my last podcast, which was by myself, had 1 like and 6 views. So
eat them up,
man. But yeah, so we'll be talking about the Minecraft movie next month, and whatever other movies we go see. I know in our first episode of the year, we went through all the movies we're ready to see, but I don't think I don't remember what those were. But anyway, that's it. 32 minutes of waffling around. So thank you guys for listening, and be sure to subscribe, and we will see you guys next time. Ross doesn't want to say bye to you guys.
Oh, bye.
Bye.